gotta go faster, faster, faster. I've had the Sonic X theme song stuck in my head for the last day, and I do not know why. I never watched that show growing up. I don't know how it got in there, but it's just been on constant repeat, okay? Also for the fact that I've been listening to it while preparing for this review for like the last 15 minutes, so I'm as hyped as you could possibly get. Let's do this! One Piece Chapter 1059 review titled, The Captain Kobe Incident. Ah yes, the Captain Kobe incident, I remember it well. The Captain Kobe incident occurred in a bleak September morning in 2022, where Captain Kobe was part of an incident where there was an incident. I guess we'll find out today. Alright, so we continue on with the cover page with the Germa 66's Emotionless Excursion, except this one is actually not focused on how awesome the Germa are. No, this one is focused on how awesome Caesar Clown is. Caesar Clown was able to take out Katakuri and Oven at the same time, so I don't want to hear any crap that Caesar's a weak character, alright? So last time we had Caesar basically approaching the Germa and saying like, hey, if I use my gas to distract Katakuri and Oven, will you help me get out of here? Like, we can all escape Whole Cake Island together. Last time I said, like, well, what if Caesar uses poison gas on the Germa as sort of like a bargaining chip where he's like, I'm poisoning you now in order to get the antidote. We must all escape together or I will not give you the antidote and then you will die of poisoning. And then everybody was quick to point out, like, okay, yeah, but you do know Reiju is literally poison pink teching. You know, she literally has the ability to absorb and suck out the poison. Might be a little bit awkward because they're her brothers, but still, like, you know, she has the ability to nullify poison. That is literally her power. So, I'm like, yeah, I didn't think that far ahead, but that's maybe why Caesar did not use poison gas against Katakuri and Oven. No, he used hallucinogenic gas. So Oven and Katakuri are tripping balls right now, alright? Actually, they're not, but it would be really funny if they were just like, the cover page is just Katakuri and Oven just sitting on the ground, just like high as hell, and they're just like, whoa, man, I'm seeing some weird shapes on the ceiling. Did you know we're living in a giant cake? I know, right? Isn't that weird? Why do we live in a giant cake? You know, and they were just like on the ground with like swirls in their eyes. But no, they're just beating the crap out of each other. I'm assuming what the hallucination is like Katakuri and Oven are seeing each other as the enemy, okay? Which, I don't care whatever way you want to say it, Caesar Clown was able to take out Katakuri and Oven. So, there it is. You know, I started thinking back on the fight between Caesar and Luffy, and that's really not so much that, like, Luffy was able to one-shot Caesar. It was more about Caesar having way too much pride in his own abilities and his ego, and that's the sort of thing that led to his downfall, if you really think about it. Because Caesar absorbed the Shinokuni, you know, the country of death. You know, he absorbed that into himself, so he turned into this, like, giant, hulking, purple gas cloud, which looked cool, but it was also kind of the same thing. It was like that Smoker did. He's sort of like increasing his body size ratio, so Luffy could just charge in, go into gear third, use one Grizzly Magnum, and just boom, you know, like one-shot him there. I remember in the anime, they added a little bit more scenes with it, where Luffy, it took a little bit more effort for Luffy to take out Caesar, but in the manga, it was like one shot, Caesar was done, alright? But if Caesar was smart, and Caesar even defeated Luffy earlier on in the arc by just absorbing the air around him, by, like, you know, removing the air so Luffy could not breathe, okay? He didn't try that trick again, so Caesar was just like, I will defeat Straw Hat with my ultimate gas weapon. No, Caesar, you don't have to be clever with this. Just absorb all of the oxygen so Luffy can't breathe, or fill the entire room up with carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. That'll probably be good enough to take Luffy out, or just do this hallucinogenic gas shit. Really. So, Caesar, I'm telling you what, man, Caesar's gonna team up with the Germa, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. You mark my words on this one. Okay. Well, anyway, we now cut to a location in the New World. This is a in-between arc chapter, so we're gonna be bouncing around all over the place. It's gonna be insane. We're starting out very close to SPHINX Island, which was Whitebeard's homeland, where Marco was living, and he was helping out the citizens there. This is also where Whitebeard and Ace are buried and everything. So we actually see the Red Force, and we get an answer to a question that a lot of people had. I kept forgetting about it, but Where did Marco go? I guess Marco just left, right? Without saying goodbye. Well, we get the explanation for that. Okay. So Marco is actually traveling with the Red Hair Pirates right now, and they gave him a lift back to Sphinx Island. And so he's like, hey, thanks SPHINX and everybody for the lift. I appreciate it. I gotta head back home now. And SPHINX is basically like, hey, taking the opportunity while he has it, SPHINX is like, are you sure you don't want to join my crew? And I mean, that's fair, right? I mean, the Red Hair Pirates are really powerful. The different captains, or I guess the way, okay, SPHINX is the chieftain, and then there's like the commanders of his crew. I can't remember what SPHINX's commanders are called. They might just be called commanders. I don't know. But whatever. The rock stars of the Red Hair Pirates. No, that's actually Rockstar is a member of the Red Hair Pirates, but he's not like a leader of the Red Hair Pirates. Anyway, Marco would fit in perfectly with that, right? So SPHINX sees an opportunity here. He's like the previous, right-hand man of Edward Newgate himself, and he's not, a part of any pirate crew. The Whitebeard crew has been dissolved. And remember back when, after Marineford, it was SPHINX that actually helped out Marco, obtaining the bodies of Whitebeard and Ace, getting them back from the Marines, and then having that nice funeral. SPHINX helped out Marco there, and Marco thanked SPHINX for that. He's like, hey, thank you for all your help here, helping them get buried and everything, and that's a big deal, right? And so at the time then, the Whitebeard crew was still technically a thing. Marco was the new captain after Whitebeard died, but now it's after the Payback War. Marco's essentially a free agent, I guess, and so SPHINX is like, hey, join my crew, and, we could do some crazy stuff here. And Marco is just like, you know what? I am done. I am way too old for this shit. I am tired with hanging out with these really strong Yonko. I am retired. All right? I got back in the game once, during the battle with Wano, and that was really to settle some old debts and put some ghosts to rest. Odin was a good friend of Marco, because Marco's been on Whitebeard's crew ever since he was like a teenager, so he knew Odin, and then Odin died, and I'm sure Marco always felt really, bad about that. Like, oh man, we didn't save him. We couldn't even be there for him. And of course, Izo also felt a lot of guilt. Ace wanted to go and liberate Wano, but he wasn't allowed to at the time. So that was probably something Marco, just like in the back of his mind, he was like, man, if the opportunity ever presents itself, I would really like to help out Odin's legacy and help out Izo and everybody and put those ghosts to rest. And also help out Luffy, who was Ace's brother. So he came out of retirement for this one moment, but now he's done. Just when I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in. All right? And I also love it how Marco says, I'm way too old for this. I'm in my mid-40s now. I'll leave it to the younger generation like SPHINX, who's 39 years old. I'll leave it to you youngsters in your 30s. I'm 45 now. I'm done with this, okay? So Marco thanks once again the Red Hair Pirates, and he flies back over to Sphinx Island. SPHINX is there kind of like, oh hey, come on, quit talking about me like I'm some sort of handful. I'm not a handful, right guys? And Ben Beckman's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, and he's like, yeah, I can't disagree with him. Sorry, SPHINX. And Lucky Roo's in the background laughing. Monster's there. Monster is their pet monkey. And so, the monkey's happy and everything like that. And so that's just a little scene there with the Red Hair Pirates. We don't see too much of them, but it's cool there. As Marco is flying back to Sphinx, we cut into a flashback to see what actually did happen with Marco at Wano. He did not just leave. He actually did say goodbye to everybody. But first, we have a little bit more of an introspective into Yamato. That's right. I love how we, okay, Wano ended, the curtain fell, the end, and then last chapter we were not in Wano anymore, and then now it's like, okay, guys, guess what we're doing? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Going back to Wano! It's like, we have some other stuff we need to cover. It's like, all right, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up here. Oda, why couldn't you have just included this 2 chapters ago? Was that really that important? You could have made this chapter 1058 and then just switched them. It would have been fine. We could have waited an extra week to get all of the Straw Hats bounties or whatever. You could have added one more chapter. Whatever. Okay. So we learn a little bit more about why Yamato decided to stay in Wano, okay? Now, the explanation that Yamato gave to Momonosuke and Kinemon was, well, I want to do what Odin did first, and Odin traveled all over Wano first before he went out to sea. So I want to be like Odin, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now, I'm not saying that that's not something Yamato doesn't not want to do, but that wasn't the main reason. So we have a flashback where the Straw Hats, this is right after the battle with Aramaki, okay? So probably the scabbards were all taken out to be, you know, healed up. You know, this is back when Raizo and Shinobu were both very injured by Aramaki's attacks. So the scabbards all go away, but Yamato is left unscathed from this battle. So Yamato goes over. Remember how Jinbei and Luffy and Zoro and Sanji were like on the cliff, like watching what happened, and they were like, oh, it looks like Momo got pretty strong or whatever, right? So Yamato just went up on the cliff and is now talking to Luffy and everybody, and that's where Yamato says, hey, I think I'm just going to stay in Wano. I don't think I'm going to travel with you guys. Like, I really, really want to be a pirate. I really do. And Luffy's even like, oh, come on, be a pirate, Yamato. So right then and there, that proves Luffy is okay with Yamato joining his crew. Alright, it wasn't like a situation where it's like, hey, you know, you need to be true to yourself or whatever. No, Luffy's just like, sure, come on board. I'm inviting you, basically, and Yamato is declining. Yamato is just like, listen, I really want to be a pirate with you guys, but that admiral attacked the island. Momonosuke was sort of able to fight him off, but I don't think that we should just put all of our eggs in one basket here, you know what I mean? And Yamato essentially says, I need to stay on Wano so I can protect it. Because it's the realization that, like, Yamato, without the Straw Hats being there, Yamato is the strongest person in Wano, like, easily. You know, Yamato has crazy powerful strength, and also the mythical zone, the Makami fruit and everything, which is the guardian deity of Wano from back in the day. And so, you know, Yamato's like, if somebody else attacks, you know, I could not in good conscience go out to sea with you guys. I'd be constantly worried about what's happening back here. Like, we're at sea having a fun time, and it's like, oh man, I wonder what's happening back over there. You know, Kaido is gone, sure, but that kind of leaves, you know, other pirates to come in and attack. Also, by the way, they confirm that Kaido is no longer there. So they all have really good observation hockey. I'm assuming after Kaido got knocked down the hole, Big Mom as well, something happened, and they don't sense Kaido or Big Mom's presence around anymore. I don't think that means they're dead necessarily. Maybe they might assume that they're dead, but I think what happened is during the volcanic eruption, Kaido and Big Mom were rescued. They got ejected from underneath Wano, and they ended up around where the Big Mom's crew was by the Queen Mama Shanter, and the Big Mom crew picked them up, and then they sailed away. Now, where are they going? I don't know. Back to Totland? Who knows? But it was mentioned by Morgans, I think, that like, oh, Big Mom's ship had a run-in with the Cypher Pole Zero, and then it left, okay? So I'm thinking they're still alive, but they're not in Wano anymore, and they're probably severely injured, if not like in a coma from the battle and being chucked into a giant magma caldera, right? But at any rate, Yamato, Luffy, Jinbei, Sanji, they all know observation hockey really well. Zoro does as well. And they all seem pretty damn confident that Kaido's no longer around. So they're like, okay, I guess they're assuming he's either dead or he's not in the nation anymore. Either way, I guess they're not worrying about him anymore. And so Yamato's just like, I can't abandon them. All right. Now, Zoro even brings up, he's just like, okay, we'll just make sure to maybe come up with another explanation to Momonosuke, because Yamato cannot just go over to Momonosuke and like Momo's like, hey, Yamato, why are you deciding to stay in Wano all of a sudden? I thought you wanted to go with the Straw Hats. You were talking about it the entire arc. Why the sudden change of mind? And Yamato can't just be like, oh, Momonosuke. It's because you're too weak to protect your own people. So I have to give up my dream to stay here. Not a big deal, though. You know, Yamato obviously can't say that to Momonosuke. It would, like, destroy him. So Yamato's like, instead, like, okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna stay in Wano because that's what Odin did. I'm very indecisive with this, but this is what I'm doing, right? You know, honestly, it does remind me of the time back at Totland when Jinbei was, it looked like he was going to join the Straw Hats right then and there, but he opted to stay behind. And a lot of people got upset over that. I remember at the end of Whole Cake Island when Jinbei was there and Luffy's like, you know, you're a member of my crew now. And Jinbei's like, yes, I know, but I have to stay behind, even though the Sun Pirates were cheering Jinbei on to go with the Straw Hats and finally leave and be with them and be happy. Jinbei's like, I have to stay here and fight with my brethren, okay? A lot of people got upset over that because it was like, oh man, Jinbei, can you just join the Straw Hats already? But honestly, I like the way this is depicted. This makes a lot more sense with this flashback involved. I'm still a little annoyed why Oda didn't just include this like earlier, but whatever. Okay, I can get over that. I enjoy this because it's some good character writing. It really is. It is. Because I want you to think about this. Look at it with Jinbei and look at it with Yamato, all right? Jinbei, back at Whole Cake Island, he looks back and he sees the Sun Pirates fighting for their life against all of the big, the Big Mom Pirates, the Germa are there. They're fighting for their lives. Jinbei is not just going to abandon his family and be like, well, they might all die, but I'll travel with Luffy. No, he can't. I mean, he was captain of the Sun Pirates for years, for God's sake. So he's like, listen, I have to fight with them. I have to make sure they can get out of this alive. Then I promise you, Luffy, I will come and find you in Wano and I will join your crew. And Luffy's reaction was like, you damn well better. And then Jinbei did, okay? But it just makes sense. It's like, because like, imagine if you were actually in that position there. You had a choice between going with the Straw Hat Pirates and, leaving your family and all your friends behind to fight a battle which maybe they might win, maybe they might not, And so Jinbei making that choice, I thought was good character writing, okay? And Yamato, in a similar way here, where Yamato's like, okay, Wano is my home, Momonosuke, all the scabbards are my allies, what happens if a really strong opponent lands here again? Like on the level of an admiral. Not even on the level of an admiral, but just like a really strong pirate or something. I'm going to be so worried about it, I'm not going to be able to focus on the adventures. So Yamato's going to stay in Wano, maybe train Momonosuke a little bit, and then when everything gets to the level where Yamato feels like they can take care of Wano on their own, maybe then Yamato will go out to sea and, meet the Straw Hats and everything like that. So I'm actually okay with this. This extra flashback really added to it. I guess I could say the thing was like Oda just threw this in there to cover for a past mistake. I don't think that's the case. I think Oda did plan this from the beginning because it did seem weird that Yamato just all of a sudden was like, I'm going to travel with the Straw Hats. Actually, I'm not now, So I was a little worried about that because I assumed like after the curtain closed on Wano, we weren't going to see a flashback from Wano for a while. But here we are. By the way, while we're here, why can't we just have can we have a little bit of a Ryuma grave flashback a little bit? Why not? Probably not, but okay. Anyway, yeah. So, Luffy's actually even a little bit upset over this. Luffy's just like, at first, like, yeah, come on, be a pirate. Yamato explains, and Luffy's just like, yeah, I guess it makes sense. I guess we would worry a lot, so it's a good thing that you are staying here. Luffy just, he goes with the wind with a lot of this crap, okay? So, anyway, yeah, that's how that goes. And, Sanji's really upset that Yamato's not going to travel with them. But, as we saw later on, Yamato and Kinemon and Momonosuke, when they went to Tokage Port, Luffy was there and said, like, if at any point you guys want to be pirates, come and find me, and you all have a place on my crew, basically. So, there you go. You put those two scenes together. If you just look at this scene first, and then you look at the scene with the Tokage Port next, makes a lot more sense, and it's a little bit less infuriating. So, there we go. But anyway, yeah, we also have the scene with Marco now arriving at the same area that they're all hanging out. This is still in the flashback. And Marco's like, hey, I'm going to head out first. There was a crew that landed close by. That was Shanks' crew. I noticed a ship. I'm going to go get a ride with them. And so everyone's like, oh, okay, bye, Marco. Luffy thanks him for, saving him at Marineford. He never got a chance to thank him for that. Marco has this really good moment where he's like, hey, I think Ace would be really happy to see how far you've come. And Luffy's just like, she. Oh, really? Yeah, okay. So it's kind of like Luffy's like getting complimented from Ace a little bit, okay? Or like a really close friend of Ace, so it's sort of the same thing. So Luffy's really like, aw, gee shucks, like that kind of thing. And then Marco, the last words he says to the Straw Hats there are just like, these times, this new era belongs to you guys. Stay strong. You can do this. And then he flies away to land on the Red Force and get taken back to SPHINX Island by the red-haired pirates. Okay, so that's how it is. And we see the scene in the present with Marco arriving at SPHINX, and he's sort of like, his head is held high. He's like confident that this new generation is going to be able to, carry the will of Whitebeard and everybody and like lead into the new era. Like Luffy will be king of the pirates. I'm sure Marco's feeling very confident. Now, since we just had that flashback with Marco. Does that mean the Straw Hats are still going to go to SPHINX? Because I made a video talking about like the map and everything, and if you're going by the same map that was in Rurubu One Piece, which was like this map book a couple of years ago, or a year ago, I guess, it looks like the Straw Hats should be going to SPHINX next, but maybe they're not now because we just got this whole backstory with Marco, or maybe because of the backstory with Marco, we are going to go to SPHINX. It'd be a little weird because it's like, oh, goodbye everybody, this new era belongs to you. And then they just land at SPHINX anyway. It's like, oh, hey, Marco, long time no see. It's like, all right, fine, sure. I don't know, but we'll see where that goes. All right. But now, we're cutting to a whole new location. Well, it's an old location, but it's been a while since we've been here. We now cut over to the Paradise side of the Grand Line. Specifically, not really the Grand Line, we cut over to the Calm Belt, bordering Paradise, to Amazon Lily, the land of the Kuja, the Isle of Women. And we see what's been going on with Boa Hancock and the rest of her, you know, her tribe there. Okay, so first of all, when we see the establishing shot of the island, the giant mountain that had like the 9 snakes on it, it said like Kuja, because, you know, Q is 9 in Japanese. That mountain has just been sliced, okay? So somebody took a carving knife and just split that mountain down, so it doesn't look that good now. So some serious battle definitely went on here. So this is the current, like, present day Amazon Lily, and we see Boa there, and she's got some bandages. The rest of her siblings are there, like Sanderzonia and Marigold. They seem okay, but, you know, Boa is there, and she's just like, man, I knew that I wasn't going to be, when I'm not a warlord, that people were going to attack this island. I guess I should maybe leave. And then Granny Nyan is there, Gloriosa, who was one of the previous generation rulers of Amazon Lily. She was actually the ruler from 3 generations ago. She was also the one that helped, you know, find Boa and her siblings after they escaped from Marijois with the help of Fisher Tiger. So Nyan is there, and she's like, well, where would you go, Empress? You know, I mean, yeah, if you stay on this island, more people will attack, but where would exactly you go to hide? And Hancock is just like, well, I guess this would be the perfect time for me to go get married to Luffy. Like, so everything always circles back. It's like, it's one of those line diagrams or whatever, and it's like, it doesn't matter, they all end in the same way, and it's, I guess I should go and marry Luffy, basically. So Boa's like, our island got attacked. I should probably leave. This would be a good time to get married to Luffy. And Granny Nyan is behind her and just like, that's your answer to everything, like literally. So we get a flashback a few weeks prior. Now remember, the last time we saw Amazon Lily was, I believe, chapter 956. And it was right after the warlord system had been abolished. And we saw the Marines all heading to the various locations of the warlords. So, you know, Stainless was going after Buggy at Kalibali Island. We saw the Marines attacking Weevil and Mihawk on Karaigana Island. And we saw Kobe approaching Amazon Lily, but we didn't know who else was with him. In this chapter, we actually find out it was Yamakaji. You guys remember Yamakaji. Who doesn't remember Vice Admiral Yamakaji? So Yamakaji was one of the Vice Admirals that actually led the Buster Call against Enies Lobby. Remember, the whole idea of a Buster Call is you have 5 Marine Vice Admirals leading the battleships in the Buster Call itself, okay? So Yamakaji was one of those. He's the Marine that has the big bushy beard and he's always smoking a cigar, but unlike Smoker, he always seems very cheery. He always has this big grin on his face of just like, aha, heading out to sea, being a Vice Admiral, that's what it is to be a Marine. Attacking Amazon Lily, are we? I see. Men, you know, aim at the island, bombard it to death, you know, like that's Yamakaji, basically. He's all right out of all the Vice Admirals. There's worse Vice Admirals out there. I always like Yamakaji, sure. So they start bombarding the island, but also remember, this is the debut of the SSG, the Special Science Group that Vegapunk is heading up, that is the replacement for the Warlords. So this was basically like their test run to see like, okay, we're getting rid of the Warlord system, which means we better have something in our arsenal that can also contend with Warlords, all right? We're on that same level. So they're going to unveil the new Pacifistas, the new PX line, okay? The new updated PX are here, ladies and gentlemen, because remember, and this is something that has not been addressed for a long, long time, but way back at the beginning of the time skip, okay, so back in like 2010 or whatever, remember at the Return to Sabaody when Luffy and Sanji and Zoro fought against those pacifistas there, and they were able to basically one-shot them. Luffy was able to dodge the lasers, no problem. Zoro and Sanji, you know, took one out, no problem. Sentomaru mentioned that those PX were still the same models from 2 years prior. So, like, the PX4 was the model that, like, all the Straw Hats had to, you know, combine their power to take one out, okay? Those are the same models. And, yeah, Zoro and Sanji were able to take one out, no problem. Luffy was able to take one out, no problem. But Sentomaru mentioned, obviously, those were prototypes, and they have not gotten any stronger in 2 years, okay? Which implies that there's a new model of pacifistas that are going to be released at some point. I remember in Film Z or Film Z, we also saw the white pacifistas that were the ones led by the Neo Marines, by, you know, Zed and everybody like that. Zephyr, he had those, but they were still obviously modeled after Kuma, all right? So we're going to get to see some new pacifista models, and I guess we'll see how that happens, all right? Yamakaji mentions they're called seraphims. Okay, now seraphims are angels, and it differs depending on, okay, a little bit of a theological, historical talk here, mythology, whatever you want to call it, okay? Seraphims are very high-ranking angels. In fact, I think in Christianity, seraphims are the highest-ranking angel because there's different hierarchies of angels. There's regular angels, there's archangels, there's principalities. My favorites are these things called the thrones, which are basically 3 concentric rings that, like, have eyeballs around them and then a flaming eye in the center, and the whole thing is on fire, and they just kind of float around. Very weird, not what you would typically think. A lot of angels, you know, you think of an angel as like flowing white robe and flowing white wings and like a beautiful face of like a woman or something. No, I mean, there are angels like that, but a lot of angels are like kind of monstrosities, to be honest with you. But anyway, seraphims are typically depicted as angels that have 6 giant wings. And it depends on the depiction. Sometimes they're depicted as way more monstrous or non-human. Other times they just look like humans that have like these 6 billowing wings coming off of them. In, I think, Christian teachings, they're the angels that are like the closest to God. So it goes like God himself, and then like directly below God, like the highest rank of angel are the seraphim. So it's a fitting name considering we're going along with like pacifistas or pacifists, and it's like, okay, they're giant death terminators that fire lasers at everything, so not really pacifists, but you know what I get, it's sort of an ironic name. And seraphim kind of like this too, where these are the new weapons that the world government and the Marines are going to utilize to try to take over the world, essentially, but we're naming them after like the highest degree of angel in Christian teachings, all right? So a little bit of irony here, I guess. Anyway, so we see the Marines attacking the island. We see the depiction of one of the seraphim, but they're just shrouded in like a silhouette for right now, attacking the island, okay? Now, we have Marigold and Sweet Pea there. It was nice to see, not Marigold, sorry, Margaret. It was nice to see Margaret again, all right? Margaret was the Kuja tribe member that first met Luffy when Luffy landed on the island. Okay, that's Margaret. Sweet Pea is also there. They're all named, all the Kuja are named after flowers. And so, sweet pea is actually not, I thought it was a vegetable at first because it was a pea, but no, sweet pea is a flower. There it is, it's a flower. And Sweet Pea's thing is that she always announces things as if she's writing a book. So she'll always be like, you know, oh, we're entering the chapter of the invasion of Amazon Lily. Or like, I don't know, it is now the chapter of I will now enjoy my evening dinner. It is now the chapter of I must train to get stronger. She talks like that. It's an interesting little quirk. Anyway, Margaret and Sweet Pea are there, and they're witnessing the power of the seraphim in front of them. And so Margaret is just like, I can't do this. I can't attack a child. And so we see the seraphim in silhouette, and it does look like a child. In fact, it looks like a child with wings and fire coming out of those wings. So, kind of like the Lunarians. In fact, exactly like the Lunarians, really. And so, this is, have the world government weaponized children? That's not against what they would do. That's essentially what Big Mom was trying to do with Caesar Clown and everything and the Giants on Punk Hazard. But did they make Terminator robot children with death lasers attached to them? My God, the world government is messed up. Seriously. This is like some serious psychological warfare here, okay? Because as Margaret even says, like, you know, they're ready for an invasion. They're ready for the Marines to charge and, like, take over their island. That's what they're preparing for. But then, like, a child steps out of the jungle and, like, starts blasting lasers at them and just like, do we fight a child? Like, what do we do here? I don't know, but she's blowing up the whole island. Like, oh, God. But, I mean, hey, I gotta be honest, at least giving the world government some credit here. It is a messed up thing to do, but like, when it comes to psychological warfare, I mean, you can't get much better than this, really. I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, there's other ways to fight battles beyond than just like, you know, send the Marines, send giant weapons or whatever. If you get some psychological warfare in there so the enemy, you get the enemy not wanting to attack you and leave them helpless, this is like the Battle of Pelusium all over again. It's a Persian-Egyptian battle that took place like a long time ago. You want me to tell you about the Battle of Pelusium, where the Persians basically flung cats at the Egyptians, and the Egyptians didn't want to injure cats because they're like a sacred animal because the god Bast, and so the Egyptians like fled, and the Persians won, and they took over Egypt for a few dynasties? Maybe at the end of the video, I'll tell you about the Battle of Pelusium. I kind of want to, but, like, yeah, that was an example of, like, psychological warfare, kind of what the government's doing here, all right? So, that's not even all that Amazon Lily has to worry about, though, because while the Seraphim are, like, bombarding the island, all of a sudden, the main fleet that's surrounding Amazon Lily start feeling a sea quake, and then they turn around, and sure enough, they see, oh my God! Blackbeard off the port bow! You know, and so it's Blackbeard's ship, which I do love that Blackbeard still has all of his ships that are looking like giant rafts. You know, like they're these giant logs that are all like, you know, connected together to give the appearance of like a giant raft, which is actually like a huge galleon that can hold a lot of people. That was like one of the ships that they had at the beginning of the story, and they just made a bunch more of them, okay? Well, anyway, yeah, Blackbeard is arriving at Amazon Lily, so that was the location he was talking about before when he was like, Zeha! The warlords are abolished, eh? Well, you know, raise anchor, men. Take the Saber of Zebek. We're going to be heading out to sea. Is this the Saber of Zebek? I don't know. It looks a lot like all the other ones of Blackbeard's ship, so I don't think this is their flagship, but Blackbeard is the admiral of his fleet, and he's here, so I assume this might be the Saber of Zebek. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't really matter about that, but he wants Hancock's Mero Mero no Mi. He wants the Love fruit, all right? And I mean, you really can't wonder why he would want that ability. If you've ever thought Hancock was like really weak or something out of the warlords, if you actually look at her abilities, and I've made videos about them before, they're insanely powerful. It's not like just the prerequisite either of just like, you have to have like lust in your heart whenever you know, see the love beam and then you turn to stone. She has so many other abilities like the slave arrow and the pistol kiss. She can turn inanimate objects to stone, and anybody that's played D&D should know petrification is a bitch to get rid of, okay? When your character is like, when you're playing D&D, and it's like, okay, you got hit by prismatic spray, you're petrified now, bro. It's like, oh shit. It's like, yeah, there's really not much you can do about that, okay? Unless you have something perfect to like, you know, nullify that. If your cleric knows something that can do it, you're basically screwed though. You're a statue, all right? And if the statue falls and shatters, you're even more screwed, okay? So she literally has the petrification fruit, and we're gonna find out some more stuff about it in this chapter of how devastating this ability is, okay? So it does make sense that Blackbeard would want that power. Then of course you get to the whole thing of like, well, does the ability make you beautiful? Because then you have to picture Blackbeard eating the fruit and like, yes, I now have the power of the love fruit. And then Blackbeard eats it, and he's like, I'm becoming attractive! And then he's like, it's like the episode of SpongeBob where Squidward gets like super hot or whatever, and just like Blackbeard gets up and he's just like a ripped god, and he's just like, Zeha-ha-ha-ha, we shall now take over the world. You know, just like, no, I don't think that's how the love fruit works. I think it's the same, and Hancock basically clarifies it later, but I honestly think it's something along the lines of the op fruit, where if you eat the op lollipop fruit, Law's fruit, if you don't have medical knowledge, you really can't use the fruit to its fullest extent. Kind of the same thing with the love fruit. Like, you already have to be physically attractive to really get the most out of the fruit, okay? So, yeah, I think that's how it works. Also, I mean, like, Blackbeard might not eat it himself. He might always give it to somebody else on his crew, okay? So that could always be a thing as well. But at any rate, he wants the ability to turn other people into stone and petrify them at his will. That's pretty useful to have, okay? I'm kind of kicking myself, though, because I made a video a while back on devil fruit lists that, like, you know, certain fruits in the world that Blackbeard would be looking for, and I did not include the Mero no Mi on that list. And now thinking back on it now, and I'm just like, man, that one actually does make a lot of sense, right? Anyway, so Blackbeard just creates a sea quake to separate all of the marine ships, so Blackbeard's ship can just go straight through into Amazon Lily. The Marines all mention that, okay, on top of the sea quake, this is also going to alert the Sea Kings, because remember, they're in the Calm Belt right now, and using Vegapunk's abilities with the Sea Prism Stone coating ships, then they can go through the Calm Belt without being noticed. But now there's this giant sea quake happening. The Sea Kings are going to find out what's going on, and they're going to start attacking, okay? So they're worried about that. So Blackbeard makes landfall on Amazon Lily. He's there. We also have Katarina Devon, one of the Titanic captains, the head of the 6th ship of Blackbeard's fleet, and we also have Vasco Shot, head of the 8th ship on Blackbeard's fleet. Fun fact, I believe this is the first time we're seeing Vasco Shot post-time skip, and he looks exactly like he did pre-time skip. I still think he's wearing the Impel Down uniform, too. He's still wearing, like, a striped uniform or whatever. He also has this big, like, backpack on his back, and he's swigging back a big thing of sake, because he's heavy drinker, Vasco Shot. And they're just talking about what they're going to do with Boa once they find her and obtain her power. You know, Blackbeard's like, you know, we need her power. And Katarina Devon is like, ah, oh, she's so gorgeous. I can't wait to slice her head off. And Blackbeard's like, well, hold on, Katarina. You can do that after I get her fruit, and then you can do whatever. Remember, Katarina Devon's backstory, it was explained a little bit in an SBS. She would go around the world literally hunting beautiful women, and then she would take like a crescent-bladed scythe or like Naginata or something. That's how she's Crescent Moon Hunter Katarina Devon. And she would slice off and decapitate the heads of all the women in the world that were more beautiful than she was. And she has like a demented, like macabre, like collection of these heads, all right? And then Vasco Shot just likes to get drunk, so... yeah. So anyway, they're charging into the island. They're going after them. Blackbeard is just basically like, you know, stay away, Marines. And he, like, punches the air with the Gura no Mi. This creates a shockwave to kind of knock all the Marines back. And just like, you know, you guys stay back. You know, I don't want to deal with you. All I want is the love fruit. This is Blackbeard literally attacking an island of women to obtain the love fruit. So I'm just, okay, we're going with this. So, the Gura no Mi causes a massive shockwave. Kobe is on the island. In fact, Kobe made it to the center of the city of where the Kuja live, okay? So Kobe's there. Also, there's a giant banner of Luffy that's hanging up in the square. That's Luffy's wanted poster. And we actually saw that in one of the cover pages where Boa, like, threw up a giant banner of Luffy in the center of her city. And she's like, oh my god, he's so fetching. He's such a dreamboat. You know what I mean? So it's fun that that's there in the background. Kobe walks into the city and just sees this giant banner of Luffy. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess, hey, Boa, you love Luffy? I love Luffy too. I'm starting a fan club. You can join. Come on, just put a stop to this, right? So Kobe's trying to be diplomatic about this. Kobe's just like, okay, Blackbeard is here. Shit is really hitting the fan. You know, Boa, you know, the Navy isn't looking to fight you. Seriously, all you gotta do is just surrender yourself to us and we'll give up immediately. So he's basically like, yo, all we want is you. We don't want to wipe out your island or kill everybody here, all the Kuja. Just, you know, come over to our side, let us take you back, and then we'll end the fighting immediately. Now, this doesn't matter because Blackbeard is there now, and he obviously doesn't give a shit. So Boa has not left the castle. She's still there with Sandersonia and Marigold, and she's just there, and they're honestly trying to keep her safe because they don't want her to go out and fight because then she could get captured, so obviously they don't want that. So, Sandersonia is acting like, they're a little bit, overconfident of themselves. That hero of the Marines is thinking too highly of himself, referring to Kobe. Kobe is referred to as a hero of the Rocky Port incident, which the Rocky Port incident is, like, never brought up. It was only mentioned, like, one time in the entire story, so I'm not even going to go into further detail of that. I made a video about it years ago, but whatever, you go check that out. Nobody cares about the Rocky Port incident, honestly. Nothing important probably went down anyway. But anyway, Kobe apparently was the hero of the Rocky Port incident. And so you know how he always has like one of those medals on his like Marine uniform? I always imagine that's the medal he got from the Rocky Port incident, right? So anyway, Boa just has a very strong moment of defiance where she just steps out and she's like, I will never surrender myself to captivity. And that means a lot coming from her, considering her and her sisters were captured at a young age by the Tenryubito and were slaves and were tortured. They were force-fed the devil fruit. Well, she was force-fed the devil fruit when she was a little kid, so just for the entertainment purposes of the Tenryubito. So, yeah, they went through a lot of shit. It was pretty rough for them. And so no matter what happens, Boa will never submit herself to captivity or being a prisoner. She would rather die than make that happen, okay? She just never would do it after what she went through, okay? Never going back to that. So she steps out, and Sandersonia and Marigold are like, sister, please don't go out there. Do not fight. And she's like, oh, hell no. I've had enough of this shit. I'm dealing with this right now. People, all these men storming into my island and telling me what to do. Screw this. So she busts out her slave arrow and she just starts bombarding down and like turning a bunch of people to stone in the process. As this is happening, cutting back to Blackbeard now, he's like in the middle, like stomping through the jungle, and then all of a sudden his men are just like, Admiral Teach, help us, we can't handle it, and it's just getting knocked down, and Teach looks over and he's like, what's going on over there? And then we see another Seraphim, another Pacifista. Teach does recognize it as a PX, and he's like, what, a PX? And it's another child. This one is a boy, and it looks a lot like Mihawk, all right? Oda drew all of the warlords when they were kids, and the first one we saw was a girl that looked a lot like Boa when she was little, and this one looks a lot like Mihawk when he was a kid, all right? So, something's going on here, guys, all right? The Marines are like taking Lunarian DNA from the warlords, mixing it with Pacifista technology, and I don't know how all this works together, but, death robot children that are also Lunarians. I don't know, that can also fire lasers. I don't know how this shit works, but it's pretty damn terrifying if I have to say so myself, and I just did, alright? So, they bust in, we see the Mihawk Pacifista, the Mihawk Seraphim, he has this giant sword, and he's the one that actually brings down the sword that slices the whole damn mountain in half. So Blackbeard's like, what the hell's going on here? Pacifista charges at Blackbeard, he uses armament hockey on his arm, he like blocks the attack, and he's like, holy crap! It's like, what is the Marines doing here? So these Seraphim are not to be messed with, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't just like Pacifista version 2.0. Like, that's what I thought they were gonna be. I thought like the next generation of Pacifistas were gonna be Kuma, but with like a blue jacket instead of a brown jacket or something, you know what I mean? And so that was going to be it. But no, it's completely different model, completely different technology. The original Pacifistas were basically Terminators. They were, living tissue over metal endoskeleton, that basic thing. This is something altogether. These are like warlord clones. It was like they took DNA from Boa and Mihawk, which, no surprise on how they could get their hands on that, because, they were warlords for years. They probably had plenty of opportunities. Also, Boa was a prisoner of the Tenryubito, so, getting her hair or something like that probably wouldn't be difficult. And so mixing that DNA with the Lunarian DNA that they obtained from King, because remember, King was trapped at Punk Hazard for years, so they experimented on him constantly, so they definitely got some blood or some examples of King's DNA. So they literally combined that DNA with the Warlord DNA, I guess added cybernetic enhancements as well, so I guess they are technically cyborgs, and then they like grew them in like a clone tank, and they like accelerated their growth. So yeah, they're kids right now, but they might grow faster. Like they might get to the point where it's like give them a couple of months and they might be like adults that are even stronger, you know what I mean? Like this might be like at their weakest form, because Vegapunk was like, they're not ready yet for combat testing, and it's like too late, we're unlocking the protocol, Seraphim Seraphim protocol. And then they come out and then they fight and they're super strong now, but they might even get stronger is my point. This is actually really terrifying here, okay? So anyway, one of them is able to slice a mountain in half. Not a big deal for them. Blackbeard blocks it. He looks like, oh man, he uses black hole to start of like stop them and like absorb everything into the black hole there. Cutting back to Boa now, she uses the slave arrow, that hits all of the Marines. Helmeppo turns to stone, Vice Admiral Yamakaji turns to stone. I guess Kobe managed to just avoid the arrow. So whenever she uses the love beam, like the Mero, you actually have to be hit by the beam and be viewing, you know, Hancock in like a lustful way to turn to stone, okay? Slave arrow is the same basic thing, except you have to get hit by one of the arrows. Also, I assume if it hits an inanimate object, the inanimate object turns to stone automatically, okay? So it is a really powerful devil fruit. Kobe, I think, just got lucky and avoided the arrows, really, honestly, there. I don't think Kobe would be immune to it or anything. So now we get a double-page spread where Blackbeard has now arrived in front of Boa. We don't really get a follow-up on what happened with the Seraphim back there. I guess he used black hole to like absorb the Mihawk Seraphim or whatever and managed to escape. Anyway, we now have a scene where Blackbeard is now holding Boa up by the throat and he's like, I will now take your ability. All the Kuja are surrounding them, and remember, Blackbeard, the Yami no Mi, absorbs devil fruit abilities, so while he's touching you, you cannot use your power. It's also at this point that we get the updated bounties for not just Blackbeard but also Boa, and this is crazy because I figured that Blackbeard's bounty was going to be a lot higher than this. The 2,247,600,000. I assumed it was going to be a lot higher, and it is. Blackbeard's new updated bounty is 3,996,000,000, which makes him the second highest ranked Yonko at the moment, right behind SPHINX. So SPHINX still has 4 billion, he's at the top. Blackbeard is very close, like just barely, honestly. Like there's not even like 100 million berries of difference between SPHINX and Blackbeard right now. Then after that we have Buggy at 3.1, and then we have Luffy at a solid 3 billion. So like I assumed, Luffy has to start on the bottom here. He's at the bottom of the Emperors, he has the lowest bounty out of all of them, then Buggy, then Blackbeard, then SPHINX at the very top, who Luffy wants to, like, you know, defeat and become like a great pirate. I guess not really defeat, but you know what I mean, like that's the whole promise there. So it makes sense, like, thematically why it would be set up like that. We also get Boa's new bounty. Now, her previous bounty was, I think, the lowest out of all of the warlords before it was frozen. It was 80 million berries, even lower than Crocodile's 81. However, some things to keep in mind here. Boa, that, as we know, was an emperor of, was not an emperor, she's the Empress of Amazon Lily, but she was a warlord for the longest time out of all the ones that we know of, okay, that we know the actual dates for, okay? Boa became one of the warlords at age 18, all right, which I also think is the time she became the Empress of Amazon Lily, all right? So that's 13 years now. She's 31 at the moment, so she's been a warlord for 13 years. So that means way back then, that was when she got that bounty of 80 million, when she was head of the Kuja pirates, okay? So they turned her into a warlord very quickly. So it would make sense that her bounty was as low as it was way back in the day. But now her new bounty that reflects her current power and status, of course, 1,659,000,000. Very impressive, I must say, all right? Well, anyway, at the moment, we now have, this is an awkward moment here. We have Blackbeard holding Hancock by the throat, and then we have Kobe kind of like in front of them, sort of like trying to mediate everything, of just like, oh, please, come on, guys, you don't need to do this. You know, Kobe, it's a little bit out of his depth, you know what I mean? He doesn't really know what to do here. So the Kuja are all surprised because Boa cannot use her powers. We see Vasco Shot and Katarina Devon have both been turned to stone by her abilities. Blackbeard mentions to Boa, you know, I've had my eye on your ability for the longest time. However, Boa, while she's being strangled, by the way, she doesn't look, I mean, she's in pain, but she doesn't look like it. She's bleeding out of her mouth, but she's just like, I'm not giving you any sense of fear or anything. It's not happening. But Boa does say, very calmly, very stoically, while she's being strangled, Boa's like, you know, my ability is based on my beauty. So it doesn't matter if you kill me and take my devil fruit and you give it to somebody else. They won't be able to turn everybody else back to stone. They are turned to stone forever. So I made a video about this a while ago because I was curious about this. What happens if she turns somebody to stone and then, you know, they get shattered? Or if Boa dies or the fruit gets reincarnated? How does that work? And Boa specifically says, now, she could be lying, or she might just not know what happens, but I don't think that's the case. I think she is telling the truth here. She's like, you know, it was my beauty that turned them to stone, so only I have that ability to turn them back. Even if you were to give the fruit to someone else, they can't, you know, turn them back to normal. So basically what Boa is saying that, like, if you kill me here, then your friends, you know, Vasco and Katarina Devon, they're never turning back to humans again. They're never turning back to flesh and bone. And so Kobe's there and he hears about this, and obviously all of his friends, Helmeppo, Yamakaji, all the Marines are also frozen, and so he's just like, ah, shit, I kind of assumed that. Man, Bo is giving us a lot more problems than we expected. There it is. So yeah. So Kobe is pleading with them, pleading for Blackbeard, like, please do not kill her. Can we just figure out some other way to deal with this, please? And then Blackbeard looks down at Kobe and he's just like, ah, Kobe, it's been a while since we've met, isn't it, hero? You know, you did me a favor at the Rocky Port. That made it possible for me to overthrow Ochoku. And then because of that, I was able to take over the Pirate Island. Ochoku. Ochoku. Who the hell's Ochoku? Ochoku. And I've been reading One Piece for a long, long-ass time. Thought I knew every character. Ochoku. Ochako? Ochako Uraraka from My Hero Academia? She's the one behind all this? I knew it. I knew it. I didn't want to... Okay. All right, this is a problem. This is a problem, all right? So it turns out the previous user of Fuji Tora's Devil Fruit was Ochako Uraraka, who has come back from the dead. All right, now. No, it turns out Ochoku, yeah, is the Japanese pronunciation of another name that was originally in Chinese. And that is, of course, the name of Wang Ji. Wait, oh my god, we did it! We did it, yes! Yes! Finally! We got some of that nice Wang Ji! Oh, yeah, finally! Y'all laughed at me! Y'all laughed at me! Well, who's laughing now, huh? Wang Ji's coming to town! Oh man, it's gonna be a nice Christmas this year. Oh yeah, Wang Ji was around at the Rocky Port and Blackbeard apparently killed him and took over the Hachinosu. Okay, so Wang Ji might have gotten one shot by Blackbeard, but the point is, Wang Ji is now in action. I need a shirt. I need a shirt that just says, I heart Wang on it. Yes! Okay, by the way, I should just correct everybody right now. Some people are probably already commenting it because I've heard it before. Wang Ji's name is not actually pronounced Wang Ji. It's in the Chinese, it was probably pronounced like Wang Zhu or something like that. So, you know, Wang Zhu. No, it doesn't work. It's Wang Ji. You gotta add emphasis on the Wang, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, yeah, everybody was sending me comments like, Tekking's gonna freak out when he sees this. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I lost my shit when I read it. I was like, this is insane. It's finally happening. We got Wang. I just hope he's not dead, okay? But it implies a few things. It implies that Wang Ji was in charge of the Hachinosu, was like taking it over, which makes sense because he was a previous member of the Rocks crew. So after the Rocks crew disbanded, Wang Ji set up shop at the Hachinosu and he was the commander of it, but then Blackbeard wanted the Hachinosu for his own devices, so then he attacked. That means the Rocky Port incident had to happen at Hachinosu. And also we know Law was involved in it somehow, we don't know why, but it was said by Brand New that Law was the mastermind behind the Rocky Port incident. Was that the event that made Law into a warlord? I don't know. It was mentioned that Law sent 100 hearts over to the Marines, and that's how he became a warlord. So I'm assuming that Law became a warlord before the Rocky Port incident, but then he was the mastermind behind the Rocky Port incident. Also, we know that Kobe was there, and Kobe was somebody that actually protected the civilians during the Rocky Port incident, and that's how he became the hero of the Marines and got rank of captain. Okay, cool. So that means that also at the same time, Blackbeard showed up, and I guess because maybe the Marines attacked and they weakened Ochoku or Wang Ji, that was when Blackbeard showed up and defeated him, and then he took over the Hachinosu, and that's how Blackbeard became a Yonko. I think I'm gonna make a follow-up video about that. Okay, so anyway, I'll get into that later on this week. We'll make a video all about Wang Zhi. Don't worry about it. Okay. So anyway, Kobe is here, and it's just like, listen, please, just, you know, make sure to restore everybody, Hancock, please. And then Blackbeard is just like, not before I get her power. And then Boa is like, you know what? If you guys just both leave, if you just both fuck off and leave my island, then yes, I will turn everybody back to stone. Now, Blackbeard, though, he's not falling for that, because he looks over at Bo and he's like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. I have the strangest feeling that the second I let go of you, you're gonna turn all the men here into stone. You're gonna turn me into stone, you're gonna turn Kobe here into stone. Kobe, you don't want to get turned into stone, do you? No, he doesn't want to get turned into stone. Nah, I think I should just kill you right here. So, you know, Blackbeard's kind of just going with the sunk cost fallacy right here. He's just like, well, I didn't really think this through, but let's see. If I let you go, I can't trust that you're gonna free everybody, right? You'll probably just turn me into stone and then crush my body into a million pieces. So I can't let you go. But also, I also can't steal your ability, because even if I steal your ability, by the way, we still don't know the mechanism behind how Blackbeard steals the ability. But let's say he was able to steal the ability before, actually, it was mentioned, wait, hold on. Wait, this is important. Hold on, I have to go back a second here. All right, when Blackbeard first arrived on the island, Katarina Davon was like, you know, I want to make her head part of my collection, implying Katarina wants to kill Boa. And then Blackbeard says, you can have your way after we take her powers. Okay, that's interesting, because that implies she has to be alive to take the power. But with Whitebeard, he was dead when they took his power. Or maybe he wasn't dead, maybe he was just like barely hanging on, and then Blackbeard took his power. Not really sure about that. That's interesting. Okay. But anyway, at any rate, Blackbeard also realizes, like, okay, even if I took her power without killing her, I can't turn my friends back to the way they are. So basically, Blackbeard realized, like, all right, well, it kind of sucks, but I guess I'm just going to have to kill you, forget the love fruit, and also leave Vasco and Katarina, because any other option, he might get turned to stone. Blackbeard might end up getting petrified, and then his whole plan is ruined. So right when Blackbeard's about to deliver the finishing blow against Boa, I guess, that is when Rayleigh steps up to plate. That's right. Dark King Silver's Rayleigh walks into the island, takes out his sword, and everybody calls it a day. I love it. Kobe's like, what? Dark King Silver's Rayleigh? And Blackbeard's like, what? Rayleigh? All right, sets Boa down. All right, sorry about that, Boa. I just really wanted your devil fruit. And it's like, it's okay, I get it. It's like, yeah. But Rayleigh's here now, so it's time that we go home. It's like, yeah, that's fair. I'm like, Kobe, everything's good, Kobe? I was like, oh, yeah, everything's good. Rayleigh's here. I mean, we can't do anything about that. So it's just like, yeah. I love how it's just understood. The fight is over when Rayleigh shows up, and they all agree simultaneously. Blackbeard is like, all right, that's fair. I'm just going to set Boa down, and Rayleigh says, like, hey, Boa, change everybody back into flesh and bone, and then I'll make sure there's no funny business, and everybody will just leave. And then that's what happens. That's what happens. Literally, Boa's like, okay, and she releases everybody, the Marines, Blackbeard's crew, everybody, and then Rayleigh just sits there, probably on a rock or something, and he's just like, all right, Marines go that way back to your ships, Blackbeard, you go that way back to your ship. And then Blackbeard, I guess, was just like, all right, I guess I gotta go home for dinner. All right, see you, everybody. Boa, I still want that devil fruit later. It's just like, it's like kids going back home after playing outside all night or whatever. Oh, my mom's calling me, guys, gotta go. It's just like, Rayleigh's just sitting there with a disapproving dad glare on his face, just like, But that's how the battle ended. Oh my god, I love it. I love Rayleigh's just absolute badassness just emanating off of him. He doesn't even, I mean, he took out his sword. He was unsheathing his sword, okay? That's like, all right, Dad's getting his belt. Let's get out of here, you know? I mean, let's just move. All right. So, and of course, Boa has Boa and all of the sisters also really respect Rayleigh because it was Rayleigh and Shocky and Gloriosa that helped them after they escaped from Marijwa, okay, and helped them get back home. So, Boa, at certain points, Boa had a little bit of an attitude with Rayleigh, but she's one of the few men in the world that she does not hate, okay, for that reason, okay? So anyway, now we just cut back to the present day there, where we see Rayleigh and Shockey hanging out on Amazon Lily. Rayleigh mentions, he's like, you know, I was able to end it this time just because of this reputation of mine, this giant, imposing dragon of a reputation that I have as Dark King Silver's Rayleigh. But he mentions, you know, I'm old now. I'm pushing 80. You know, Rayleigh is 78 years old, and he's like, I honestly don't think I'd be able to take on Blackbeard in a one-on-one fight. I mean, it wouldn't be a thing where they get, you know, left unscathed, but, like, I don't know if I could do it, you know what I mean? Now, we also have Shakuyaku here, who is also Shockey, just how you say her name, like abbreviated, and we get a title box for her, and we actually learn that Shockey was a previous empress of Amazon Lily. What? What? Okay, I always assumed, like, she was a member of Rox's crew because she mentioned she used to be a pirate 40 years ago and Garp used to chase her around, so I assumed she was a member of Rox's crew. But no, I guess she was a former captain of the Kuja, therefore an empress of Amazon Lily, and it mentions specifically she was the empress 2 generations back. She's in her mid-60s right now, keep in mind. She just looks really good for 66. That's just how it is. But anyway, yeah. So remember, and I also went back and read some chapters, and it was mentioned specifically that Gloriosa, Grandma Neon, was the empress before Shockey. She was the 3rd generation empress back. So I made this little chart here. These are the previous empresses of Amazon Lily. We have Boa here as the current empress. We do not know the previous empress right before Boa, 1 generation ago, but Shockey at age 66 right now is the 2nd generation empress, and we also know that Gloriosa was the 3rd generation empress back. We do not know how old Gloriosa is, but she's pretty elderly. I'm assuming she's either in her late 80s, maybe even her 90s. She might be the same age as like Haradis. She might be like as Stroizen, like in their late 90s. There's a few One Piece characters that are that old, so that might be very possible for Gloriosa there. So that's another video for me to talk about that. Like, okay, how did the story go with Shockey and everything? And this video is already long enough. There's a lot of stuff crammed in these chapters that are, like, you know, in between arcs. So yeah, a lot of discussion points for this one. But, you know, bookmark that. We'll get back to it. So anyway, yeah, Rayleigh mentions that, like, hey, we got lucky this time, because if it actually resulted in a straight up fight between me and Blackbeard might have had a solid chance of winning, okay? Now, Rayleigh doesn't have a Devil Fruit, so he doesn't have to worry about that weakness, but Blackbeard's got the Gura Gura, he's got the Yami Yami. It would have been a tough fight for Rayleigh, okay? And that's giving Blackbeard a lot of credit, too. Do not underestimate him, like a lot of other characters have in this series, okay? But more pressing and terrifying than Blackbeard, though, is that Sandersonia and Marigold are talking about the Seraphim. And they're like, that is so messed up, because one of the Seraphim was... it looked just like Boa did when she was a kid, and we see the view of the girl Seraphim that we saw in silhouette earlier, and she's got white hair, just like, you know, the Lunarian. She's got the wings and the flames. She has the same earrings as Hancock, and she has star pupils for her eyes. But it looks just like her, okay? So, yeah, the Marines, Vegapunk, the world government, they were doing something with, like, DNA. They were obtaining DNA from the warlords, mixing that with Lunarian DNA, combining that with the cyborg tech to enhance their physical abilities even stronger. We saw how strong the Lunarians are. We saw how strong King was. You know what I mean? So if you take all this stuff together, Lunarian, Warlord DNA, and cyber tech from all that, and you add it all together, holy shit, you got some seriously powerful pacifistas on your hand there, okay? So we got to learn about what happened there. And then the last scene of the chapter is we see a boat. We actually don't know which boat this is, but it's a marine ship, and it says that, yes, we will be docking at the Egghead port soon. Egghead, Dr. Eggman, I don't know. It all comes back to Sonic at the end of the day, I guess. You know, regarding the kidnapping of Captain Kobe, the report says the hero of the Rocky Port incident has been abducted by one of the 4 emperors, Blackbeard. His current status is unknown. So I don't know if this might be Yamakaji's ship, like, heading back to port and relaying the information that Kobe has been kidnapped, all right? Now, and then we see the newspaper with, like, Captain Kobe abducted by Blackbeard's crew. All right, so this is something very interesting because we know Kobe is a member of SWORD, and we also know Drake was a member of SWORD, and we also know Aokiji was working along with Blackbeard. I don't know if Aokiji is the 10th Titanic captain, but he was definitely working with Blackbeard, okay? I like to think Aokiji is definitely a member of SWORD. I mean, it would make perfect sense, if not him being maybe one of the ones that founded SWORD. It could have been like Sengoku and Aokiji and Garp like working together, and they created SWORD as like a separate unit, okay? So Kobe's a member. I like to think that this was not him being captured like against his will. I like to think this was Kobe like choosing to go with Blackbeard because of some secret SWORD operation going on in the background, okay? But to the rest of the Marines that don't know that SWORD exists, it's framed as an abduction, okay? But in this case, it's like Kobe has to go meet Aokiji or something. So, you know, Blackbeard's gonna take him back to the Hachinosu. Aokiji might be hanging out there, and then Kobe gets to talk with him, and then we might see what's going on here, all right? So Blackbeard might be thinking that like, oh yeah, Aokiji and Kobe, they're working for me. That might be the setup at the Rocky Port incident. Kobe might have set it up like, helped out Blackbeard to make him become an emperor. So the way Blackbeard talked about Kobe in this chapter, it seemed like he's like, oh, you know, Kobe, I appreciate you helping me out there. Maybe it was all part of a massive SWORD plan where SWORD tasked Kobe to go to Rocky Port, get rid of Ochoku or Wang Ji so that Blackbeard become an emperor, yes, but this was all part of the framework to get, you know, Aokiji in there, to get Kobe in there and take them down from the inside. Like a sword in the darkness. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, that's the end of the chapter. That was a long chapter, guys. There's a lot of stuff to unpack with this, but I think I'm just going to call it right here. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you about the Battle of Pelusium. Okay, so the Battle of Pelusium was, there was the Persian Empire, the Achaemenid Empire versus the Egyptians, okay? And so the Persian Empire knew that the Egyptians really respected and, you know, revered cats, because cats like Bast was one of their goddesses of like childbirth and like, you know, prevention against disease and like childbirth disease and everything like that. So Bast was really important. Bast is a goddess that has the head of a cat, okay? So the Persians knew about this, so they painted cats on all of their shields and advanced. They also had a bunch of other animals like dogs and the Egyptians revered as like, you know, sacred. And so they basically threw a bunch of all of these animals out in front and they attacked the Egyptians, and it worked. It actually worked. The Egyptians did not want to fight the Persians because they did not want to injure or damage the image of their cat goddess Bast. Also did not want to kill any of the animals like sheep and stuff they were throwing at them. So yeah, they won, and the Persians actually took over Egypt after this battle. And so the 27th dynasty of Egypt was like started the Persian Empire dynasty of Egypt. But it's okay. The Egyptians did fight back and they did reclaim their land, but then the Persians took it back again. But it's okay because Alexander the Great showed up and then wiped out the Persian Empire. But then the Egyptians also just fell to the Macedonian Empire, which Alexander the Great headed up. But it's okay, because then Alexander the Great died, and it was still ruled by Greece for a long time. But then it's okay, because the Romans took over Greece, and then Egypt was led by Rome. But it's okay, because eventually Rome fell. Okay, I'm just going to keep going on and on about this. But yeah, that's the Battle of Pelusium. That's how that went. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking signing out. A lot of stuff to talk about later. Gotta go fast.